Hey friends, welcome back to the Mayhem Performance Podcast. This week, we've got Jake Foster and Tyler Christophel. All three of us have done CrossFit for many years, and we all also competed in the sport, not at a high level like Tyler, but
let's define compete in the sport.
Yeah. He was at a higher level than Jake and I, but we all competed.
Bro, I took 9th at the Central Florida Throwdown. What do you know about that, Tyler?
So I just go ahead, take it over.
Just start listing all your accolades here.
27.
That's about it. No, I'm just kidding.
How many athletes were there? Was there 9?
There was actually a good bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was my first comp ever. And I could only do pistols on one leg. So it was a workout with like 60 pistols. I'm doing them all on my right leg, and then we had a shuttle run after. So I'm like gimping. I won my heat. Let's ride.
That's a heat win.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
We'll take that as a W.
I'm not sure where we're
top
at.
10, baby. Let's go.
We wanted to talk to you guys today about why it actually sometimes is important to have a coach that has experience in the sport of CrossFit and how it actually helps us become better coaches. And who better than Tyler, who was at the highest level of the sport, got to experience both success and failure throughout his process or his journey as a CrossFit athlete, and now is a full-time coach and an excellent coach at that. So Tyler, you just want to kind of introduce yourself for those that maybe don't know your story, and then we'll kind of dive into some of those questions I had.
Yeah. So on the success and failure, I feel like most of it from my perspective is failure. And I think talking about that a little bit here would be probably good too, just to show like when you're watching competitors or athletes, a lot of times we see the highlight reels, right? So, you have, as an athlete, you have your season whenever you had your successes and your highs, but then I think I speak for a majority of us who probably had more lows maybe, or more failures that we deem as lows during that journey. So I would say part of my journey is that, which isn't always the most exciting journey and fun journey to follow, but I think it is essential to talk about.
But you would say that through all of that, the successes and the failures, even if you see a lot of those failures and they sting, has allowed you to become a better coach now.
100%. Yeah, I would say being able to take those failures and use them as motivation and drive to do something next has been crucial for me. And I think that sometimes we can get stuck in where we make mistakes or where we have failures and we can see it poorly. And I think it is important to kind of talk through and walk through maybe what that looks like too.
Yeah. I actually just gave a talk. There's an elite athlete camp this weekend. Then we're going to do an NPC camp after. But I talked about the infinite mindset. And so it comes from Simon Sinek. I've talked about this on the podcast as well. But, there's this finite mindset, which is essentially just like everything's in front of you. There's rules to the game. There's an end time. And the infinite mindset is always, the focus is always improving. And what you're talking about with your CrossFit journey, maybe a lot of those are finite where there's maybe success or failure, but the underlying concept is all of those things have led you to this more infinite mindset of I'm always improving and now I can be a great coach because I've learned so many lessons from those failures.
100%. And I think keeping that perspective, we've done some talks here recently on faith and how that shapes things. And I think keeping that mindset of how am I growing through this and how am I going to use this later versus focusing on the good and the bad all the time keeps you in a dangerous spot, especially for athletes.
Yeah. Jake, you can jump in at any point.
No,
I just wanted to riff real quick.
Go.
Yeah. So we'll come back to the failures because I think there's a really good story there. I think people are afraid of failing, but at the same time, just like we're talking about, that's the best opportunity to learn and grow as a human being and to make impact in the world around you. So we'll finish the podcast with that. But I'd be really interested because I think even in my own journey, I've learned a lot about how to communicate with athletes based on me actually being on the floor and pacing a certain way or acquiring a certain skill or getting stronger or whatever it may be. So I'd be interested just based on your competition journey over, 10 years or 12 years of how long you did it. What did you learn that you're kind of giving your athletes? Maybe let's dive into just like pacing first and how you prepare someone for a competition. And then I want to talk about movement specifics.
Sure. I think competing especially gave me the ability to be on the floor, and it kind of started with knowing who was left and right of me competitor wise. I knew which guys would be good at what event, right? As a CrossFit athlete, we're constantly analyzing that. The guy that's going to lift a bunch, like we know Guy's going to lift the heaviest, or we know Haley's going to win a very high level endurance event, right? So when it comes to pacing, being on the floor helped me see what types of athletes there were out there. And then, so whenever I have a conversation with an athlete, I'm trying to kind of learn what their essence is. And then maybe we err on the side of working on what they're not biased to. So just learning that about them, having that competition experience let me identify that pretty quickly, I would say.
Yeah, the knowledge you get from being out there on the floor, because the first couple of times I'm sure we were all panicked and you're just kind of going fast and you blow up in a workout. But over time you get that competition experience where you realize this is the one that maybe I'm not going to win. So how do I just mitigate the loss? Like that guy's stronger than me, but I know I can beat these other 3 guys. So I'm kind of in my own lane racing 3 guys, not the winner. And so then you can start to communicate that to your athletes when they go out into a semifinal or a qualifier workout and like, hey, this may not be your jam. Like you're not that great at ring muscle ups, but if we pace it this way, you're going to be able to beat most of the field, which will allow you to qualify for this event.
Sure. I think part of getting that competition experience too is whenever you do poorly pace something and you know what that feels like, and then you can communicate to your athletes like, hey, maybe racing Haley in this workout in the first 2 rounds is a really bad idea. Or coming out with your opening lift with gi is a really bad idea. So it's like just a reminder to stay in your own lane and execute just under. We kind of talk about threshold some, but I think that helped me identify and then communicate to them. If you look left and right and there's nobody there because you're in first and it's not your home run workout that you've talked about with your coach, it's a bad idea.
Real quick, my follow-up question. How many, do you have an exact number of total amount of in-person events you competed at over the years?
Oh man.
Could you like ballpark?
I would say maybe 3 per year for 10 years. So roughly.
So you're at least 30?
I don't think it's that high. Maybe less. Maybe around 20 to 25. Yeah.
And then how many of those were like semifinal sanctional? I know some online mixed in there too.
Yep. Let's just say 5, 6-ish.
By the end of your career, did you, like when you're in the middle of the workouts, kind of building off what Brandon's talking about, in school, that skill development class I was in sports expertise, they look at experts and they're like, the experts across any sport, they have, they call it like attentional load or capacity, right? So like Brandon's talking about, like in the middle of the workout, they're actually more aware of where is my opponent. Or I think in CrossFit stuff, cause you're not like, you're racing your opponent, but there's nothing you can do to impede their progress. Right. So it's different in like football or soccer.
It's not like tackling.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't make a move on them or be athletic.
You just brought something that made me think about that is like, how many, like Brandon was saying, like, and we probably never got enough experience. So when we're in the middle of the workout, we're only thinking about like how much we're dying, or we're so worried about like the next movement. Like, oh man, like I hope I don't fail this ring muscle up or something like that. Did you notice over the years that your attentional capacity like went way up? Like you were able to like actually be more aware of, other opponents or where your fatigue level was at? I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have an experience and a story with that, but I can definitely relate to that. I mean, going back, you were talking about your first competition and first like event win and stuff like that. I remember my first in-person
I didn't win the event.
Workout.
I won the heat.
Heat.
Yeah,
my bad.
Chill out, bro.
That was the peak of the athletic performance.
Yeah, I think definitely that happens. I think it does come with experience. As your fitness capacity grows, you're obviously able to like get further out ahead just by nature, right? You start doing it for 5, 6, 7 years, you are kind of ahead. You kind of know what to expect in the workout, what to expect later in the workout. And something I've been having conversations with athletes about is when they do go to compete, I'm like, please don't even come out. I can speak to this experience in the first event. Don't come out and try to do too much and have that negatively impact event 7, right? We don't talk about that much. We don't talk about how, shout out to Rich, who was able to do that over like at the highest level. He was able to do really well in event 12, 13, 14 due to his training load, due to his capacity at the end of a weekend. So having that conversation, I think.
What are you coaching your athletes to think about? Like in those, like you're in the middle of a workout. Are you having conversations with them about here's what you should be thinking about? And is that built off of your experience?
Sure. I think there's a curveball with CrossFit because every event, you don't know where you're going to be, right? You could have an event where I had some experiences early on where they were maybe better movements or a better energy system style workout for me. So I knew I could be a little bit further ahead and my awareness was higher, right? Maybe with like the top 5 guys. And then I had my workouts where I knew, hey, you need to stay in your lane here and not get yourself in trouble and ruin the rest of the weekend or ruin the event. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's kind of that level to it too. So having those conversations with athletes, again, it's just like, hey, you don't need to try to over deliver here and overcomplicate it here. And I think part of that too came from some football experience playing a quarterback.
Yeah.
My dad would always communicate to me, don't try to do too much. Your job is to deliver the ball, and that's it.
Yeah. And the game is 60 minutes long. And the same thing's true in CrossFit, where it's rarely just one workout.
Right.
You know, you may have 6 over the weekend, or at the games, 12 to 15 over the weekend. And you use Rich as an example. He was great at this, where it didn't have to be home runs. It's just like, hey, I'm going to just stay in the fight. And then he was great on the last day because he was one of the few guys that was able to recover and still perform at a high level on that last day when everyone else was beat up. And so the same thing's true. I think you learn that from experience and just being in the grind, because then you know how to pace a weekend, as opposed to most people who just go out so hot, they're beat up after day one.
Based on your experience, do you have like a sweet spot of in-person competitions you would encourage your athletes to compete in throughout the year? Like the number of total competitions?
Yes. I think I've had some years where I did 5 or 6, and that was probably too much, but I could also handle that load at the age. Like training age definitely plays a factor in there. At 35, I probably couldn't handle more than 2 to 3. And I don't think that would be smart too. I think we're learning that as a sport right now too. I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think we're kind of figuring out. You're seeing that
with the mix of the tier, WFP, Rogue, the game season, like people are getting more beat up and they're coming into competitions injured.
So we're kind of circling back around to like what ball sports have done for the last.
That's right. Having a defined
years.
off season. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So
I'd be interested, you know, obviously that's kind of talking more competition experience and pacing, but what about like particular movements? You know, let's say that as you kind of learn and developed your snatch or your muscle ups or your clean, or you name the movement, obviously you're learning yourself and you became a really high level CrossFitter and really good at all those things. So for the athletes that you have now that are just now learning how to snatch or just now learning how to do ring muscle ups, are there certain things or ways to communicate to them that help them kind of in their journey?
I think this is what I don't know if this is the perfect answer, but this is what kind of sticks out to me is CrossFit and CrossFitters still struggle with am I doing enough all the time? And I feel like conversations lately have been about something I experienced back in like 2019, I think. So perfect. So let's take 2 movement examples, the clean and the snatch. Early on, I had some success with the clean front squat, front rack position, but the overhead snatch, overhead squat position was rough for me. I went a whole year, I think 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. But I specifically remember having some knee issues going on, and I didn't clean, I think, over 315 all year. And then I went to Granite Games that year and I PR'd my clean. And something clicked. Awesome. I was like, I never cleaned over 80% or 85% maybe. And I really didn't train it much. I mean, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe. And there was no specific design for it. I just maintenanced it with like minimum effective dose and then worked on the snatch or the overhead squat position 2 to 3 times a week. So it's kind of like what we are talking about now. I maybe just accidentally did it and it happened that way. And now I can confidently speak on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think this is a good reminder for athletes because I have the same conversations. Everyone feels like they're not doing enough or, you know, like maybe it's a shorter session. They're like, hey, can I do some extra? It's like, no, it's intentionally short today to make sure you're recovering. But, you know, I think people assume, especially with the strength or the skill stuff, that if you don't touch it in a week, it disappears. Mm-hmm. But strength maintenance actually is pretty easy to maintain. You know, if you're just getting one high level touch every 2 weeks for a back squat or a deadlift, you can maintain close to that 99 to 100% of your 1RM unless you're like truly overtrained. So I think people assume I got to hit heavy back squats. I have to hit heavy cleans to be able to maintain that. It's just not true.
Yeah. I think my experience from that was less about having the, maybe exercise sci class or physiology class. It was like, hey, I can confidently speak on this because I learned this in school. More like I had the practical reality of it on accident, maybe from.
You know, we often talk, when I feel like in these conversations with athletes, sometimes like our mind goes to, okay, what'd you learn as an athlete that was like confirmed in coach, or like what'd you learn in coaching that confirmed what you knew anecdotally as an athlete? Mm-hmm. I want to almost ask the opposite. Let's see if I can do this right. Where it's like, is there anything that when you got into coaching that a lot of us either internally at, MPC or externally, hopefully externally, not us, but that stuff that we say regularly, if you've heard a lot of coaches in the sport say that you're like, that ain't it. That's not what I experienced. Like, it's like the opposite. Like, hey, you guys are all talking about this progression or way of doing things, your nutrition, like any topic. But from my experience, like that's not how it plays out on the floor.
That's good. I have not honestly thought about that.
Neither have I until just now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, to be totally honest, coming in, I really have just tried to absorb and sponge as much of the knowledge that the staff has on that side of it. I haven't really thought about what the athlete twist on it is. I do think there's, I do think there's something to being able to break off of progression sometimes. Like we can get married to those and be like, okay, this progression's not working because week 3 I didn't PR or I didn't PR. And I do think there's some things at CrossFit that we just can't control. Like we're doing so much, right? We're talking about not trying to overdo it, but I do think sometimes we just have to trust the process that, you know, doing a strict press build and doing something else with it may contribute to strict handstand push-ups indirectly. And we have to like let go of that. Hey, maybe the strict handstand push-up is the answer, the progression, or the ring muscle up is the answer. Because I have also found sometimes that I'll run the same progression that works with 9 people on one person. I can't get it to work.
Doesn't work.
So sometimes I'm like, all right, scrap it. We're going straight CrossFit, just, you know, with something under that specific progression.
Yeah. Play the game.
Sometimes.
Yeah. 100%.
I'd love to know just, okay, so how do you actually communicate that to your athletes? You know, maybe go back to the athlete that is wanting to overdo it a little bit. What are the conversations that you're having with them? You know, are you just kind of like pointing them back to your experience as a CrossFitter, or do you have a certain way or language that you articulate that to them?
I would say I have to be careful there because I know saying what I did sometimes doesn't apply to them. So I would like, hey, maybe the language would be, hey, based on what I did, I've seen this work, or based on what I've used with other people, I've seen this work. So we're going to try it this way, or we're going to try it this way. Right. Some people can get better at 1 strict handstand push-up day per week. Some people need 4, and it's just like a try. It's just data collection, then reset.
That's what makes them good, man. That's what I love. I'm sorry. It's just in the middle of this. I'm going to break off script here. It's like, that's what I love, is that like the wisdom to go, hey, probably the best way to approach those conversations isn't to say, here's what I did. Right. Because to me, that's like the number one mistake that the former athlete makes when they get into coaching. And what it does is with a lot of people, it can come across as arrogant. And 2, that arrogance will build like a wall of resistance where you're just like, I'm not doing that just because you said you did it or something like that. And so, that shows a lot of wisdom.
I personally probably don't do a great job of that because a lot of my experience is competing and what I know worked for me. But I try to be intentional about saying things like, or using language like, we as a group, we as a staff, us coaches, I've pulled from you, or like, hey.
Or is that more just so you can blame it on us later?
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That progression was terrible. Hey, listen, Brandon told me I wasn't mine. Do it this way.
Straight from Brandon. Don't shoot the messenger.
Come to me, I'll be like, I got it from Jake.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Yo, Seth's. So real quick story. We
0 ownership.
I called Tyler. This is what. Side note. This is what like I love about our team. We call each other about different stuff, and we all have our niche, right? And so with Tyler, I'll call him a lot of times when it comes to stuff with Seth Stovall, who I coach, like the highest level athlete that I coach right now. And, when it is more sports specificity, right? When I'm like, man, I really want Seth playing the game. And, Brandon, like when we're not in it, like it's hard to write some of those workouts because the stimulus feels elusive sometimes, right? So I'll call Tyler and be like, dude, is this out of hand or whatever? And real quick, anyway, I was like, dude, how would I put this bar pull-up complex together? And so Tyler and I came up with something for Seth, and then it just destroyed Seth. And so, not gonna lie, in the text, I was like, well, Tyler and I wrote it together. So
he was like, should this take? And I was like, I don't know if I would have done 2 or something like that.
Tyler said it was okay.
So he goes, well, we wrote it together. I was like, oh my.
Well, because I know sometimes Seth will be like, well, what do you know, bro? You did 30 pistols on one leg. And
you finished 9.
You took 9 at the Central Florida Throwdown. You don't know how to write this complex.
Speaking of failure, I think that's a good way to segue into kind of
I intended that segue.
Yeah, thank you, man. You're so good at this.
Thank you.
Nice.
That is a good way to kind of lead into, you obviously, and a lot of people have heard the story, were very close multiple times to being able to qualify for the games. And you still had so much success, but it's painful when you're 1 spot out or 1 point out of making it. How has that shaped you, before we talk about like even how you communicate with athletes, but like how did that shape you as a person? Like what were you doing in the moment, year after year, getting so close? And what did you do as an athlete to kind of change the momentum from year to year as you kept coming back to the sport and saying, I want to do it again. I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep pushing myself.
Well, real quick, Brandon, too, answer that. And then for those who may not know a little bit of your story, like give the detail real quick. How many years were you just pour salt in the wound, 1 spot out? Like,
okay. So 2021, I'll just run through it real quick.
Yeah.
2021, I was in, I think 4th or 5th on the last day, took a major penalty that weekend. That was the online Atlas games. And after the final workout, we refreshed the leaderboard and Brent clipped me by 1 spot. So I was in 6th. Fikowski made 5th. And then I went to the last chance qualifier and took 3rd. They took the top 2. 2022 was in, I can't remember where that was. I think that was the Knoxville year. I was in a qualifying spot and then hit total muscle failure in the last workout, right at the line. And then I took like 1 or 2 spots out there, went to the last chance. And I think I took like 5th out of they took the top 2 and I took 5th. 2023, I took 2 spots out in Orlando and then did the Rogue online qualifier and took 6th they took the top 5. And then in 2024, I think it was my last year, I took 12th and they took 10. So I think I was 2 spots out. I did the Rogue qualifier and took 5th, but I tied with Hopper on points, but I took a penalty on one of the events because I did 196 instead of 200 double unders. So Hopper took a higher placing than me and they took the top 5. I took 6th.
So is it 7 times?
So 8 times in 4 years.
Yeah.
I was within 1 to 3 spots of going to a major comp.
I've actually never heard you break it down like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But to like paint the picture too, 2020 was an awesome year. I qualified, did the online games, which was wild because that was the online games. And then 2 years before that, I went to the games on a team. 2017 team, 2018 team, 2019, I did like 5 semis that year, which was a crazy sanctional year. And then 2020, I qualified for the games, taking like 7th overall in the Open, I think. So I think I can't remember what I took at the games.
It always reminds me when we talk about that with you is like of the Patriots, right? We've talked about Tom Brady a couple times this morning, but they won the Super Bowl in 2001, right? And then how many years was it? Or like they won a couple early and then he went on a drought for like, do you remember how many years it was?
I don't know.
Something like a decade or several. It was like 8-9 years. It was a long time that they were just like, they were going to playoffs every year, AFC championship game. I don't know if you know, and just always missing. But then he got it later. Mm-hmm. Your story is more just like, hey, I got there early and they could just never get back. But sorry, Brandon, I don't know if you want to reiterate your question.
No, I think what he was asking was the response to that, right? Year after year. And for me, it really forced me to just have a mindset of, I would come back, try to process it the best that I could. I tried to take the same wisdom that I got about winning as I did to losing. And it was basically from my dad. He was like, you got 24 hours to celebrate or you got 24 hours to kind of think about what's next. And then you go back to work Monday. And I think I have that conversation with athletes too, that maybe get disappointed in a competition weekend or something. And going through that has enabled me to be able to say, you've got 24 hours to feel good about this or 24 hours to be pissed about it or feel those emotions. Because I want to be like, hey, your emotions are stupid. This is only research and then next. But Monday, it doesn't matter if you won or you lost, you still go back to work. So I tried to bring that here too, is like, no matter what happened to me, I would still show up Monday back to work with all the rest of the athletes. Or
what do you say to the athlete? And I've had an athlete say this to me, actually, and used your story. And they were like they didn't mean it in a negative way towards you, but like, I don't want to be the top. Like they were afraid to even enter into competition because they're like, what if I'm the Tyler? Mm-hmm. What if, and they didn't give the exact number, but like the 8 times of just barely missing it. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid of that. What do you say to that athlete?
I think they're in the same boat I was before I went through this process of like, failure is the worst possible thing that can happen. And that's what happens whenever that's like your fear. And that's the worst thing. Like my greatest fear is hitting that failure point or not making it. And that's what happened, right? Versus just leaning on failure as part of it. It's those 4 years or those 8 experiences are just a snippet of a successful 10 years.
What are you saying? You like manifested it in some way, or like, what are you trying to say?
I don't know. Maybe there's something to that of like, hey, that's if your greatest fear is hitting total muscle failure in a workout and you've actually even thought about that, then that could potentially happen. Maybe there's something to that sports psych side of it. That's kind of out of my realm or I don't.
What were you thinking? Like 2024, I was standing in your lane next to Bailey, and obviously everybody's cheering for you. You're in a qualifying spot heading into that workout. I think you're in 10th, right? Yes. Yeah, and then just to. What did you think? Not like I've asked you this before. Hey, what were you thinking when you were failing the lunges? Because you looked up in the stands. Mm-hmm. I pretend you were looking at me, but you were looking at me. I was just kidding.
Of all the people, I was.
Yeah, he locked eyes with me,
not Bailey.
Yeah. Wasn't Bailey or my dad?
Awesome. No, but you looked at you looked at Bailey. And you just smiled.
Yeah.
Right. And dude, that was a moment like I won't forget. It was honestly cool. I know it sucked for you at the time, but you're like, dude, it was like this peace overcame you.
Yep.
But what were you thinking about going into the workout? So circle back to the whole like manifesting or whatever you want to call it. Were you walking into that workout going, oh no? Or did you walk in going I got this? Or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I walked into that knowing who was behind me. So I was, again, some experience, and part of that, like being able to understand and have that knowledge around. I remember running in, and I had the same mindset every time I took the floor. I went to like task focus. That would help me get away from like any like energy or nerves. It would be like, what's the first thing I have to do here? The bike buy-in. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that was it, right? It was like
ring muscle lunge.
Lunge. Yep. So I was like, 60 seconds. They say that over the intercom. I kind of took a look around. I like try to look up so I can breathe a little bit and like take everything into my eyes and just relax, and then look down at the object. So being task focused there, wipe expectations. I knew what I had to do. I had to fend off 2 guys that were really good at echo bike, heavy dumbbell lunging. I think Luke was in the mix there. Travis Mayer was right behind me. Yeah. Carone was in there. I'm like, I knew I had to bite off a little more that I could chew on that workout. And in the middle of it, you talk about capacity. I knew I blew myself up a little bit. I think I took a no rep on the muscle ups. So the workout didn't go as planned.
But in the middle of that, in the middle of that moment where you're like, oh man, this is going off. Was it like instant doubt? Like, oh no, like panic? Or was it like, I got this? What's the self-talk?
So I remember a judge coming like across my face to come, cause I took a no rep on the lunges too.
Yeah.
And I took a no rep and I didn't know what it was from or even where it was from at the time. And then there was somebody, I knew there was a judge behind me. I haven't watched the video, but
it got weird.
It was
a
weird.
Lot of judges.
Yeah, it was like kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking to myself, like, man, it's just like, I'm going to give my best effort, but if it's not meant to happen, it's meant to happen. There was literally just like a consider it all joy. Is
it different than how you felt in other, like go back to 2022 or 2021 as Syndicate where you hit muscle failure? It was on lunges, right?
Yeah.
I remember watching that from home. Was your mindset different in those 2 events? Mm-hmm. What were you thinking in 2022? What was going through your head?
2022 was like, just get it done and like keep your head down, because this is super embarrassing.
Okay.
2024 was like, my why kind of resurfaced. Like my, when you were saying like, you thought I looked up at you, I probably did. A deep part of my why would be like I look at the faces of the people around me. So I was like, these are the people that I'm representing, and I hope I do that well. That makes sense. So it's like,
what's like the lesson there for you to look back 2022 versus 2024? So you're coaching an athlete, similar situation. Yeah. What are you telling them before they go on the floor? Here's what I want you thinking about. Or are you telling them anything?
The why.
Yeah.
Of like, that's what matters. Like having a winning mindset and a championship mindset and an excellence mindset is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And don't be afraid of that. Go send it. But just know that the end of that, like the performance side of it is like, it's fleeting.
Yeah.
It's Monday. Yeah. It's the same. I'm still going to go back to work on Monday. So it's like, you can experience that no matter what.
Yeah, that's so good. It goes back to kind of the concept I was saying earlier with the infinite mindset versus the finite mindset. Like I think that God has wired certain people to be great at sport. He wired you to do things that most people can't do, like the ring muscle ups and the heavy snatches and all these amazing things that you and very few can actually do at the highest level. But we still have to have some kind of foundation, what our purpose is in life. And for you, I think that transformed over your career to realize your purpose wasn't just tied to the leaderboard. Your purpose was, your relationship with God and your family and all these other things that mattered more. And it allowed you to root yourself in that. So even in a negative situation like that, where it feels like maybe the world's kind of caving in on you, you still were able to have that ultimate peace.
There was something too, is like, there was this is probably a whole nother conversation, but I'm doing this for the right reasons, right? So I'm like, so there's so much like agony of like, man, I'm doing this because I want to make all those faces proud, and I want to like do something and give them something. Like I never wanted to let people down. I wanted to like, I don't know.
Like almost a frustration. Like I know I'm doing this for like honestly, just like a little annoyance with God. Like,
yes,
man,
like a wrestling.
Why won't you bless me?
Yeah.
Because I know I'm doing this for the right reasons.
Sure.
And some of these other guys are not.
I think you blessed more people by the way that you handled it, though. As opposed to like if you cross the line, you get in, whatever, it is fleeting. You go to the games, you do well. It's still, does it change the trajectory of your life and who you are as a person? Not really, right?
Yeah, that's one of those we'll never know.
Yeah,
but it's like I'm trusting Him with it. So it's like big picture. That's like the joy, right? It's like no matter what happens here, He's going to use it. It's just not the way I want it to happen. It's not the way I drew it up.
Dadgummit, yeah.
And that's part of my journey, right? That's part of my athlete journey is like, I was the kid younger. Like I struck out 3 times at a baseball game. It was cold out, walked to the dugout and punched out a cooler because my like winning, I wanted it. This is what I wanted to do. And I wanted it to look like me being in the front or the winner or whatever. But sometimes it's not.
Yeah. So I think to wrap it up then, like, you know, you've had those experiences and you're going to have, we've all had athletes that have been close or just missed out. You know, maybe they don't do well in the open or they qualify, but then they stink in quarterfinals, and you have to have those conversations with those athletes. So how has your experience allowed you to be able to communicate that well with your athletes?
I feel like that's a softball for what I've like kind of been wanting to talk about recently too. But it's like, again, taking mine and encouraging people to just step in the arena first, because that's a big one. I do find like being in the coaching side now and just having conversations with, you know, men and women is like, how many people want to go find out? They want to go find their potential, right? So it's like, I have done that now. So now I'm like, want to encourage them to go do that. And
Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena. Yeah.
Dude, crazy chills right now because I was really talking to Guy about that this morning, about like listening to the opinions of people and like encouraging people and like being a part of your journey. That's my favorite quote ever. That's like the only like framed quote that I have is that one. And so I think those failures have led to me being able to have the confidence to have those conversations of like, first off, let's just go like sign up and find out. And then second off, it's enabled me and I guess in a way helped me navigate those conversations whenever there are those peaks and valleys for people, and help them keep that underlying perspective, whether that's faith oriented or really process oriented too, which hopefully the process leads to the faith oriented conversations.
I think you should read that quote real quick to wrap this up.
You want me to pull it up and read it?
You don't know it by heart?
No, something blood, sweat, tears, stuff like that.
I'm going to pull it up.
You do awesome. It. I think you would read it way better than I would. You need me to solve for a second here?
Yeah.
It's not crap. It's something. It's the opinion of the critic.
Yeah, it's not the critic who
counts.
It
is not the critic who counts, nor the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat. Man, that's such a good quote.
It is.
Favorite.
It's like the beginning of like a theology of competition.
Yeah.
Which I'm starting to lean more. We got to pause on this, but like more into honestly Rich's mentality of like, get people to compete, like get people to sign up for something hard.
Love it.
And because it reveals character, like you're saying. So we got to wait for David Mathis to come on and
he's awesome.
Give us more context on that in like 2 weeks. But anyway, wrap it up, Brandon.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you, man.
Perfect.
Appreciate you guys.